Candy, welcome to the Women Waken podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited. I can't wait to talk to you today.
I am super fired up, Candy. You know that I'm already a huge fan of yours. Well, we just met a few months ago. We met for a call, and pretty instantly we were like, I like you.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it just clicks at like that, when you talk to somebody and you're just like, oh, I feel like I've known them forever, you
Yes.
know? Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like
And
that.
that's actually what you were nice enough to put in your little message. I have your beautiful book with me. Candy, you are the author of your autobiography, we'll call
Yes.
it, a true story of incarceration, abuse, shame, and redemption. Damn, and that's what it is. What a wild ride this book is. I adored it. Look at that intense picture. So, for those who are not watching this, there's a picture of you, and you sort of do like a line down the middle of your face. Now, one side is sort of in black and white, dark, and the other is very bright. When was the dark side? Is that an actual picture of you, or did you doctor it up?
So that one is not an actual picture. I had to doctor it up. I actually, so we'll get into it, but I, as you know, had a massive house fire and lost everything. And so unfortunately, I don't have a lot of photos of me from a long time ago. And yeah, I had to doctor that one, but
Yeah.
it was for the time of, being abused and also my time of fighting, like I wrote about in my book when I had a hot temper and went through my phase of street fighting other girls. So,
Street
yeah.
fighting, drug use, dating drug dealers, getting arrested, crazy stuff. The stories in here, I've told you this, Candy, but this is the kind of book where I would literally stop, jaw dropped. Like, what? I would have to reread it and think, did that seriously happen? Those are the best books where you literally start talking to it like, no way, that can't be true. And you lived it. That's your life in that
Yeah,
book.
yeah. And it's incarceration, not incarnation or the other word.
I know, I did correct
Just
myself.
in case people are like, wait, was she
Incarceration.
reincarnated? I wasn't. I was incarcerated.
I mean, you kind of were. You had a
Yeah,
rebirth,
true, true. I did have
right?
a rebirth.
And
I
that's
was
what I was
very
going to
young.
say that I do love about this picture is that whether it's real or not, to me, it exhibits the shift that happens when you go from a place of, I mean, you were actively using, you were
Mhm.
struggling, you were in a dark place. And then once we start taking care of ourselves and follow our heart and get more aligned, it's you can see the light, right? That's why people tell you
Yeah,
you look like you're glowing. You're very vibrant. You can see
yeah.
it in people's energy and in their skin and in their face. I have
Mhm.
pictures from when I was taking a lot of pills and drinking, and I look 10 years older in my 20s. I look younger
Yeah,
in later
yeah,
pictures because it's heavy. It's heavy to be an
yeah.
addict. It's heavy to be in self-destruction and in a sense of survival and depression and all those things, right?
Yeah, there's something going around on social media now, and it's like, what do you mean he sucked the life out of you, right? And it's just, when you're living in a place of just survival and shame and sadness and, addiction and doing all the things that you're just like, how did I even get here? I mean, you look different. I looked different. And now when I go and I talk and I meet people, so many people are like, I would never have guessed that you went through anything difficult in your life, you know? And I tell people, I'm like, well, thank you, but I think that's because I'm just so happy and at peace and I'm confident in myself again. I know who I am again, but it took a long time to get here. It took a long time. It was a work in progress.
You earned it. You earned it time and again. The thing about your book is that I started feeling like, oh, good, things are going well for her. It's working out. And then bam, you would get hit by other events in your life that had nothing to do with getting involved in drugs or bad men.
Right.
It's just, life happened to you. And again, as the reader, you're like, no, why? Why did that have to happen? And we'll get into some of those major events because they were major. And the whole time I was reading, I was like, damn, this girl, like, I don't know what I would have done in that situation. And I'm a survivor too. I'm a pretty determined defiant person, like this isn't going to stop me. Yet to lose everything, which you did at one point, and to get back
Yeah, multiple times.
multiple times. Okay,
Multiple
so
times.
I'm jumping all over the place because I'm excited to have you here. Because again, I loved your book and I'm super excited and proud of you for writing it. And thank you for writing it and for being so raw. You know, when we first met, that's why I feel like there was a kinship, is because you put it all out there. You don't seem like you're
Mhm.
trying to hide anything. And not that anybody's obligated. No one has to share everything with everybody. It's up to
Yeah.
you. Yet when we feel aligned with it, it can be such a beautiful gift, especially when you're this healthy, beautiful, successful woman that you are today. It helps others to see who are in that same place that you used to be, where they might think, there's no way. There's no way I'm going to ever be on my own 2 feet, healthy, happy, and
Mhm.
content in life.
That's why I wrote it though. I wanted people to know, and I wanted people to see, like, instead of, sometimes people are like, well, I struggled with drinking and drugs. And you're like, oh, wow, they struggled too. But when I'm sitting there talking about how I'm throwing up on the toilet, leaning over the toilet, I'm crying out to God to please help me. I don't know if I'm going to wake up tomorrow because I've taken so many drugs and alcohol and I'm vomiting everywhere. And I'm too ashamed to call people. That is an actual story that people can relate to. And I did it because I wanted them to really feel that that they could relate to me, and then they could see themselves in me and maybe their hopelessness, and then yeah, see that there is hope for them, right? So that's why it was so important to write it like that. I mean, when I went back, I wrote it as if I were there. And when I was younger, I had a very vulgar mouth. I lived a very wild lifestyle, and I wrote it as if I were that girl. So I did worry, and I do worry sometimes that people are going to be maybe offended by it because it is so raw, but I don't care because I want people like you who are so excited about it being raw and real that the other people is like, okay, I've been judged plenty in my life, so it's okay that not everybody might love it, but those of you that appreciate it, you can relate to it and you can see yourselves in my story, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I found it very comforting and assuring because it helps you realize that we're all walking this path together. And so many of us, our paths were difficult and dirty and raunchy and challenging at times, and something that we may not be super proud of. Yet it's still our story. It's our
Yeah.
path. And I am a huge proponent of truth. And the only thing that you're sharing is your raw, uncut truth. And I love truth so much because I really believe that that's aside from love, and I think truth and love are one and the same. When you speak your truth, you're literally letting everything unconditionally be shown, and love is unconditional, true love, right?
Yeah.
So this is a gift of unconditional love to anyone who reads it because you're like, I'm not holding back. Because what if something I left out might have saved someone's life because they were in a place where they thought that nothing could ever work out for them. They've gone
Yeah.
too far into the darkness. So thank you for that. And it's so good. And the right people will always find it, right?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you
So
so much.
speaking of that, let's talk a little bit more about what you're up to. You just did a TEDx talk.
Yes, yes.
Super exciting.
So, but I just wanted to say, like, real quick about the book. Besides writing it so that people could relate, I also wrote it because I am somebody that suffered with toxic shame, like debilitating, overwhelming shame, so much that it almost, I almost took my life over it. And I wrote it as kind of a final step, or not a final step, but one of the last steps to finding freedom from my past. So it was like I felt really bad about myself. I hated myself. I felt like I was undeserving of good things and good people. It was why I was acting the way I was. I felt like things I had done were unforgivable and I was unwanted and all this stuff. So I want people to understand that the reason I wrote it for me another step towards freedom from my past. And that's exactly why I speak. It's why I write. It's why I share with people because I want to show them how to find freedom from their past, which leads me up to the TEDx.
Yeah. Beautiful.
So after writing that book, I actually wrote it and published it. I really published it. I finished it back in 2022, but I did not even publish it till 2024 because I was still working through a lot of my shame. And so I ended up publishing it, and we were just talking about that where I didn't really market it a lot, but I was kind of working about other things. And I finally got onto a TEDx stage, which was last month. And that was actually another way for me to get out there and then tell my story to the world, right? Because TEDx is one of the biggest platforms for speakers. And then also to share my message with everyone else. And the title was Why Speaking the Truth Sets You Free.
Hey, I felt it. That's what
Yes, you just said
I was right
it.
on it. We're attuned. I love it. That's beautiful. And what was it like?
It was it was a dream come true for me. It was a goal that I had had for years, like a vision that I had had for years that I wanted to get on the biggest stage in the world and share my message. Like a message that I had hidden for decades. You right? The message that I didn't want to tell anybody about. I was just like, I want to get on that stage and share my message. And being chosen because you have to be invited and being chosen or being invited was such a huge it was just I mean, I've been grinning since last September. That was when I was accepted, and I started to work on it, and I had to memorize my speech, and then to get up there and actually give it in January was just it was a huge goal accomplished, a dream come true, and I connected with the crowd. The audience that was there was about 170 people. It's going to be online in a few weeks, and it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. So yeah, I got a lot of feedback from the audience and stuff already. And that's all I wanted was I wanted to connect with the people that needed to hear my message.
So exciting. Big congratulations to you. That's a huge
Thank
pivotal
you.
moment. And what an exciting time for you to have your book out, to have done your TEDx, because those are two great staples to say, hey, this is me, and watch my TEDx and read my book. You've done
Right.
the hard part. You've really, and there will be more because there will be more speaking engagements. There'll be more opportunities. And that's the exciting part is once you are brave enough to say, you know what, the only thing I need is me, myself, and I, because my story in itself is an offering. And that's a
Hmm.
powerful thing when you've lived a life that is so complex and colorful that you can offer it as a means of guidance and whatever else it might be. Anything that offers a sense of comfort and support and just really revealing like, hey, this is my story and it's okay for you to have yours. All of those things. So you're on your way. I'm very excited for you. And especially knowing everything you've been through. I feel like a proud, a proud friend that's like, you did this, you made it. So
Yeah.
on that note, we just introduced you as someone who's on the TEDx stage, the pinnacle of, oh my gosh, I made it. I was brave enough to overcome my toxic shame, speak my truth to the world because people will find your TEDx talk, which by the way, is it out yet? The video?
No, it's going to be out in a few weeks, but
Okay.
I'm definitely going to let you know as soon as it is.
Can't wait.
Yes.
So TEDx stage here, why don't you take us all the way back to the beginning where your book starts? And something interesting about your story, Candy, is that most people expect to hear about a really difficult upbringing in childhood where you grew up in a broken home and it was really challenging and your parents were divorced, yet you talk in the book about how you actually felt very loved and supported by your
Mhm.
family. And it wasn't necessarily because of your family that you found your way kind of veering into drugs, alcohol, dangerous crowds and partners, boyfriends, all that. Why don't you tell us about when did things kind of turn for you and why do you think that was? And
So
by
I was
turn,
bullied.
by turn, I just mean, I don't mean to sound like, what
Oh
went wrong with
no,
you, but
definitely.
you reached some challenges.
Yeah, it was definitely a turning point, as I call it. I think I might even have that in my book. I'm not sure, but I can't remember. But I was bullied. So I was bullied for 2 years. So that was a huge, huge turning point for me. It was extreme. We had to get the police involved. They vandalized my mom's car, our driveway. They wrote, BITCH and shaving cream in our driveway and it stained it. So it was a big huge turning point for me. And all of the pain that I felt from being bullied, and two of my best friends turning on me. My cousin was friends with the girls that started all of it. Nobody was sticking up for me, you know. I was a very shy child. I was very, very sweet and and innocent. And I was so, I was so different back then. And to feel that pain and to be such an introvert, it was really hard on me. And then I started fighting with my family, and I'm fighting with my dad and my stepdad, who, looking back, I didn't know at the time I was just a hurting teen, and they didn't know how to handle it because I had been this great kid my entire life. And then all of a sudden now I'm acting out because I'm hurting because I'm being bullied at school. Like I literally had to leave my school the third year because it was just escalating and it wasn't getting better. And we had to get the police involved, like I said. And so um, I think all of that just as a teenager is a lot. And that's where it turned for me. I mean, yeah, I had a great family growing up, but when you are excessively bullied by, and I'm talking large groups of girls, um, and your friends are turning on you and your family's not sticking up for you and your parents are, you're fighting with your family. My dad kicked me out because I wasn't following his rules. I mean, I think I look back and I was a hurting teen. I didn't get maybe what I had hoped I was going to get. I didn't get any kind of guidance or help, or I didn't know how to handle it. We didn't have, a lot of this online stuff that we have now. I didn't know who I could talk to. I couldn't talk to the school. They weren't doing anything about it. None of the bullies left the school. They didn't even leave after the cops got involved, and I did. And that's a whole nother, topic that I feel very passionate about right now that I am wanting to talk to schools about because I think that there needs to be some kind of reformation of what happens exactly when the bullies are doing what they're doing instead of people like me having to leave the school. Why did I leave? They should have left, especially when the police got involved. But yeah, that was the big turning point for me. It was the bullying.
Yeah, and
So,
I'm so glad that you include that in your story. Listeners of my show know that I speak often about bullying. I think it is such an underestimated incident of trauma. I think
yes.
that the traumatic impact of being bullied, especially by your peers when you're a child, is so just not recognized because people are like, oh, brush it off, let it go. But when it's incessant and continuous, it's literal trauma to your brain, to a developing brain. Also,
Mhm.
rejection from your peers as a young child is everything. All we want
Mhm.
is to know that we're accepted, right? Because as a child, we don't know, like, oh, I'm perfect as I am. I have confidence. We gain those things through the eyes and impressions of others, right? So
Yeah.
when people
Yeah.
say these things to you, you don't have the tools yet or the strength to say, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You can't help but wonder, that must be true. Why would they say these things to me if it wasn't true? And
Yeah.
at least that was my experience, because similar to you, I went through a stretch of over 7 years, and for me, it was men. It was the guys growing up. So it was like
Yeah.
horribly traumatic for me, and has caused a lot of problems in trying to learn how to feel good enough. And to this day, right? I'm freaking 40 years old. That still sticks with me. And
Yeah.
as a therapist, I talk to so many clients. I've talked to clients who got bullied one time and they never forget it. They'll say, this one time, this person called me this, and I've never forgotten it. And then
Yeah.
people like you and I, when you're subjected to it over time, it literally is a form of traumatic torture because you feel like you have no control and it hurts like hell.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's harassment,
It's
I mean, people call it bullying, but it's harassment, constant harassment. And it's unwarranted, I supposedly talked to some girl's boyfriend in eighth grade summer. I was a late bloomer. I didn't even like boys until I was like in, junior year. So, the fact that this happened all because of that, and it is like, instantaneously, like when I got to school, the girls in the grade above me, because she was in a grade above me, her boyfriend, I guess, was a year older than me. I don't even know. I don't even remember. It's like that's how innocent it was. And it just took this form of we're gonna make her life, hell. And the crazy thing is, like I said, my cousin was friends with these girls. She never bullied me. My cousin didn't bully me, but it escalated. And then the next year, the girls in my own grade were like, "Oh yeah, we want to jump in on this bullying." And like two of my best friends turned their back on me, and actually one of them vandalized my mom's property, and my mom knew this girl really, really good. And she ended up saying sorry and all this afterwards. I mean, I was just like, it was insane. It was just insane. And that kind of but you get the betrayal because a lot of people are bullied by people they know, you know? And being a teenager and like, you know how it is when your best friend like turns their back on you and hurts you for the first time. I'm sure you've felt that by a girl, right? Haven't we all as women like had some sort of run-in with some girl that's just turned their back on us like when we needed them most, you know? But yeah, it really messed me up. And I can see, when I did that other podcast, that I was telling you about, I don't want to be like promoting other people's podcast on here,
Oh, you,
but
of course you can.
oh,
We're all
okay.
in this together.
So on Soft White Underbelly, right? I did that
Oh,
podcast.
damn, that's right. You're on. That's a really cool show. You definitely need to talk about that too. Tell us that was that a good experience? It's such a great, great
That
platform.
was a great experience, but the amazing feedback that I got was overwhelming. He titled it God, it was something about bullying. I can't think of it right now. I'll think of it in a minute. The long-term effects of bullying. Okay? Because I was really going into it talking to him about bullying. Well, he put it out to his community, and I'm talking overwhelming support and comments of all these adults talking about how they had been bullied and how they hadn't healed from it and how it affected their self-esteem and their all of this stuff. And that's when I realized we need to talk more about this topic in schools because we need to make something so that these kids don't take this trauma into their adult life like me and so many others did. Like there needs to be a way to help them, you know? There's
Yeah.
got to be a way.
And I think that there's a bit more focus, but I mean, it's a whole other issue I won't get into, but we talk about the education system. The problem is that, like so many other social aspects of society, people are overworked and underfunded in these places. Public schools, there's not a lot of resources. They try to have anti-bullying and bullying support, but these teachers are tired. People are tired. They don't want to give their effort. They don't have it to give a lot of the times, which is really
Yeah.
unfortunate because then we're throwing these kids into these places together and these things happen, right?
Hmm.
And the thing about bullying that you experienced and I did is that what's upsetting is that once they decide that you're their target, they just don't let up. And it
Yeah.
sounds like we had that same experience where I was like, oh, this will go away. And it did not go. Oh, there was nothing I could do. I used to go up and approach these people individually and I'd say, hey, when you say those things to me, it really hurts me. And I really wish that you would stop doing that. And they would just be like, what are you talking about? I've never said anything and just have no,
Mhm.
but it's mob
Yeah.
mentality, right? When these
Yeah.
groups come together, they can just be horrendous. And yeah, it's just, I remember my friend years later, like after college, we were talking about my experience in high school, and she was like, yeah, those guys terrorized you. We all saw it.
Yeah.
And I was like, thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
acknowledging that because that's what it, and it sounds like those girls terrorized you as well. And again, it's not as, it's not given as much attention because it's like, well, they're not hurting you physically. You're fine. You're no, it's, they're terrorizing people. And it's, when
Hmm.
you're told to just get over it, like everybody that responded to your episode, that's why they feel strong because they know what it's like. Like, yeah, I try not to
Yeah.
talk about it because I don't want to complain and make it sound like such a big deal, but it really, really is imperative to our mental and emotional health as a child to be accepted
Yeah.
by others. And when we're brutalized and hurt, it does a
But
lot of
isn't that
damage.
so strange that you said I try not to talk about it? Because you try not to talk about it, but yet we go and we talk about being abused. We talk about having problems with substance abuse problems. We talk about, all the other issues, but we don't for some reason want to talk about our bullying because we feel like we should have just gotten over it by this point. It's like you don't just get over things. You have to work through that. And that's the whole, snowball effect, as I call it in my book, of why I went off the deep end as a good child,
Yeah. Well,
because
let's get
I
into
didn't know how to handle it. Yeah.
yeah, who does? And first, I just want to again thank you for acknowledging that, talking about that. We should talk about it more, and maybe we can team up on ways to give a little bit more acknowledgement and light to the situation because bullying's not going anywhere. It's unfortunately still how people try to find their own sense of peace and their own power when they're young. They're just trying to
Hmm.
fit in, just like everybody else. But when they do it at the expense of others, again, it's detrimental to that person, like you and I. So
Yeah.
we'll keep talking about it. We'll do our thing. That's all we can do is share our stories and offer comfort and support and be like, hey, if you're still struggling from your bullying trauma, talk about it. Go
Hmm.
see somebody about it. It's okay to not be over it, even if it happened when you're 10. That's
Yeah.
what childhood trauma is.
I just don't think that people really understand how far back their trauma goes because I didn't understand that that's what was causing all of my trauma. You see, like it was like, yeah, I got bullied, but then I thought I got over it. Because like, oh, I just went to another school and then I started hanging out with different friends and then I started drinking and doing drugs because, you know, in my teenage subconscious mind, I was just trying to not feel the pain that I felt. And I was trying to fit in, right? So I had gone from being bullied and I had friends, don't get me wrong, I had a lot of friends, but I still had a lot of bullies and I didn't talk about it. I didn't talk about it hardly at all to my friends, um, not even to my cousin. Like I asked my mom to talk about it. And so I know we're not supposed to be talking about it, but I'm saying like I didn't talk about it and I took it into my adult life with me and it just caused so many problems. And I don't think that people really understand that their problems are actually coming from like when they were kids and they didn't learn how to deal with it properly. And that's sad to me. It's sad,
Yeah,
you
well,
know?
that's the beauty and the gift of what's known as inner child work, right? And
Yeah.
also it's known as soul retrieval because the other part is we're meant to believe that we are unconditionally lovable, just as we are. We're fine, no matter what mistakes we might make. But when we're children, we need someone else to instill that in us and to affirm it, right? So when we're bullied, again, that's the first time that we think, wait a minute, am I not lovable? Is there something wrong with me? Do I not matter? These are all examples of core false beliefs that will haunt you and drive all your decisions for the rest of your life if you don't address them. And
Hmm.
that's again the impact of bullying is you start to believe something about yourself that's not true. And you will keep that belief. And just like you said, we move on with life and we're like, oh, forget about fifth grade, forget about high school, it's over. But it's like that book, The Body Keeps Score. Your body remembers, your
Yeah.
emotional body remembers, your brain remembers. And so we're trying to push through. And I know for me, like I remember I would always bring it up. And when I used to drink and use, I would get drunk and be like, I was fucking, terrorized in high school. They were so mean to me. And I remember my brother at one point was like, you get over it. Like you need to get over it. And I get
Yeah.
where he was coming from. I would get upset about it all the time. But the thing is that just like you said, there's not a lot of known support in how to deal with that, right?
Yeah.
Like, yes,
Yeah.
I was bringing it up over and over again because I was still wounded. It was an open wound that affected every belief I had about myself. It was fucking brutal, honestly.
Yeah.
And, it took pulling my head out of my ass in terms of not, because you can't just live in your pain, right? They say that what happens to you is not your response, it's not your fault, but what you do about it is your responsibility.
I say
And
that
it's
all the
it's
time.
that hard
Yeah.
it's that hard hole to get out of, but at a certain point, that's when I got sober. And I'm sure that you can relate when we get more into your story, was I was like, I'm gonna die this way. Like I'm gonna
Mhm.
die on this hill of I was bullied and therefore I can never feel good about myself. It's like, yes, that happened to you and it was really painful, but it's your responsibility to create your own reclamation and
Mhm.
decide that what happened to you when you were younger doesn't have to create these beliefs about yourself that live on for the rest of your life.
Yeah, imagine if we had somebody back then, instead of telling us to get over it, like my dad or your brother, that said, you know what? Maybe you should talk to somebody about that. You know what? I have somebody that you should talk to about that. I really think that it would help you to process your feelings.
Yeah.
How about that? But I understand that we don't all have that. I get that. And I understand that not everybody has supportive family. So I think that's why it's important for me and you and people like us to be out here being like, it's okay. You can come and talk to us, or you can, you come to this community or whatever, so that you can see it's okay. You can find happiness again from that, bad time in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So it sounds like we both kind of were shoved into the trenches from these early experiences, and then we both used external sources to try and create a sense of peace, soothing. So tell us, Candy, about your journey, because it was a whopper. You had a lot of intense elements involved in your pursuit of, I think, just finding some kind of sense of comfort or peace or joy when you were kind of marred with all these feelings.
I started drinking when I was, I don't know, I was definitely, I think it might have been like 14, 15, around that time, maybe 15. Um, I stopped playing sports. Like, I stopped going to church. I started fighting, started running away, all that stuff. Started like, I did a lot of ecstasy. But I mean, I pretty much did almost everything except for, heroin. I didn't do heroin because I had a friend of mine die when he was just 18, and they had just started doing heroin. And so it scared me. I was like, oh no. I was like, I don't want to do heroin. And this is back when we didn't even, we didn't have fentanyl in our drugs back then. I tell my daughter all the time, I'm like, don't do drugs. Like, drugs are already bad. But now they have this stuff called fentanyl, and you just die like right away. So that's really scary. But to get back to it, I remember smoking crack with my friend. And no, we were about 16, and she had met this weird guy, and she was like, "Hey, let's go to this Motel 8, and we're gonna smoke crack with this guy." And I was like, "Okay." Now this is the time that I was starting to skip school and all this stuff. Um, and we show up, and there's some guy in his mid 40s. And when you're a teenager, like, people in their 40s are like, wow, they're old when you're a teenager. We're not old now, but they were super old back then. And I just remember like smoking crack with this old, gross looking dude. And I was just like, what are we doing? Like, I don't know. And we started doing that. And then from there, I mean, I started raving. I mean, we were out all night long. I'm serious, I was eating 8, 9, 10 tabs of ecstasy a night. And then I just like maybe catch a couple hours of sleep and get up and do it all again. I was dating an ecstasy dealer, and so we were always doing ecstasy and cocaine and all kinds of stuff. So it was just really wild, and it lasted for a long time. I mean, then I started stripping. Um, After I got arrested by the DEA when I was 19,
Okay,
because
wait, can we go to that story? Can
yeah,
we highlight that story?
yeah. Which one?
The DEA story, because you were dating a drug dealer,
Yes, I
right?
was dating
Who you found
a.
out was kind of like a pretty heavy drug dealer, right? He was
He
wanted
was.
by the FBI.
Yeah, he was. He had been. He had been on their radar, I guess, for a long time. I didn't know this. I was 19. He was 28. Uh, and he was the ringleader. So like, I didn't know that. I was just, naive, and he just told me, don't ask questions. I'm like, okay. Like, I'd ask him, where are you going? When are you coming back? He's like, don't ask questions, baby. Don't ask questions. And I'd be like, okay. And yeah, he'd be like, here's some drugs, here's some money, I'll be back, right? And so I just thought, well, maybe he has another girlfriend or something. I don't know. Again, I didn't really care. I wasn't valuing myself at this point. I had gone so off key. Like, I didn't have any more self-worth. Like, I flipped fast. I flipped from that good girl that went to church, good family, all that stuff, loving, caring, to a total just, I was numbing, right? I was putting up walls. I was like, I don't care anymore. Like, you can't hurt me. I'm a bad girl now, right? I don't care. I don't have feelings. I'm gonna numb, I'm gonna drink, I'm gonna be promiscuous, I'm gonna do whatever I want just so that I could somehow tell myself that I was protecting myself. And so I got involved with this guy. knowing that he was a drug dealer, but not knowing that he was the big fish dealer. And after a few months of being with him, we ended up getting arrested at a friend's house. They basically knocked in the, I mean, they kicked in the doors. They came in, guns pointing at our heads, all in black. I thought we were getting robbed. They were telling us to get down on the ground, and I didn't see DEA on their shirts or anything yet. And I just thought, oh man, like we're gonna die. We're gonna die because, at any given point, those guys had $10,000 cash on them, maybe more. I mean, they had diamonds, Rolexes. We were at a guy's house that was a diamond dealer for drug dealers, and there's no telling what was in his actual safe. And I just thought, we're getting robbed. We're going to die. Um, in fact, we were not getting robbed. It was the DEA. And so there was some sort of relief over that of knowing that it was the DEA and I wasn't going to at least die. But it was so strange. And they ended up going through my purse and I had a bunch of ecstasy in there. And so I got arrested and went to jail. And that was my first time going to jail. And that was really, really scary. Very scary. I got out the next day. He had somebody bail me out, I guess. I'm not really sure what happened, but one of the guys bailed me out. And then I didn't see him anymore. And they were like, he's on the run. And I was like, oh. He got away. He didn't get caught. A bunch of guys went on the run. They were, what do they call it? When they, uh, I forget what they call it. So they were, whatever they're called when they're on the run.
An
So a whole bunch of
outlaw,
guys were on, yeah, outlaws. They were on the run. And I was like, wow, this is wild. Now I
a
didn't know at the
fugitive. Is it
time.
a fugitive? Is that the word we're thinking of?
Fugitive. He was a fugitive. Yeah. I was like, oh, this is
Outlaw's the
wild.
old school term back in the Wild West.
An outlaw. Um, and so I just went on with my life. I never even told my parents that I had gotten arrested because he was like, "Don't worry about it. I'm gonna take care of it." And he did not take care of it. They didn't end up finding out until later. But yeah, I went on living my life. Started dancing, you know,
Now,
after
why
that.
did you? I know why, but can you share with us? Because I think people often wonder, someone who hasn't experienced drug use or addiction, getting caught up in, well, let's talk about this, Candy. You mentioned something. You said, I I had no value. I didn't know my value. And when you have that sense of, what does it matter what I do? Why should
Mhm.
I don't, I'm not anything important. I don't have any confidence or esteem or whatever it is. So why not? And we also have that in common because when I started healing and going to therapy, I looked back and I was like, I thought I was just being like cool and fun and edgy. And I am naturally. I'm a pretty outgoing person, but it was more like I just didn't give a fuck about myself. And when you're
Yeah.
young, you get older, you're like, I have a hard time, but I need to make sure I like stay alive and that I don't break anything. But when you're young, you're like, I don't give a fuck. And also,
Yeah.
when you don't like yourself, you really, not only is it a vendetta against the world, like, fuck you all, it's also you. I don't know about you, but I hated myself. And
Mhm.
I'd be curious if you had this experience, but through being bullied, I learned to hate myself because I was so mad at myself because I was like, this is your fault. It's your fault. You're stupid, you're annoying, you're ugly, and that's why you get bullied. So I had nobody supporting me, being like, no, I mean, I had friends and stuff, but nobody who was like, Whitney, I want to stand by you and help you because what you're going
Right.
through is, they were just like, oh, brush it off. So I made up all these stories in my mind that was like, you're just worthless. And so
Mhm.
I would I would sleep around, I would meet guys, I would go in dangerous situations, I would take any drugs and whatever because and I thought again I was just being like a reckless teen, but it was because I had no value for myself.
Yeah. I think, for me, I was bullied, but I don't know that I felt that I was worthless at that point. I think I disassociated so hard. Again, didn't know I was doing that as a teen. I can see it now. But I think I disassociated so hard from that. And I went so much into the other, yes, I wanted to fit in, right? I wanted to like be wanted. I wanted to be liked. And I just thought, oh, I can drink and do drugs. It's an easy, It's an easy crowd to get into, right? I mean, it's so easy. When you go out any day of the week, you can find people doing drinking and doing drugs, and they will welcome you in with open arms. I don't recommend it, but they will, right? And so I guess it was just so easy for me to come over here and feel some sort of way. And that took on its own thing. I started drinking like excessively. Like I am the one, I became, an alcoholic, right? I mean, I had a problem with alcohol. I did too many drugs. I've OD'd, I went so hard into this lifestyle that I got so caught up in what I was doing. Like, I don't know what happened. It happened so fast. And I want everybody like listening, like I think that a lot of people can relate to this. It's like you get to this point and you're like, how did I even end up here? Because I was hurting here. I went over here to try to feel better. I start drinking and doing drugs, and now I'm drinking and doing drugs and I'm hanging out with people I shouldn't be hanging out with, but they're fun, right? And I'm like, oh, this is a wild lifestyle. And then it's like, oh, but I want to feel wanted. So now I'm being promiscuous and now I'm with these guys. And like all of that led to my debilitating shame later in life. But it happened so fast, I didn't even know what was happening, right? My self-worth went down so fast that it was like, I don't even know what I'm doing. I don't even know who I am anymore. That's how fast it happened for me. I don't even know when exactly everything happened. So, uh, feeling worthless, I knew, what am I doing? I'm hanging out, I'm doing drugs, I'm going to hotel rooms smoking crack with crackheads. Like I could see that it was like I am not a good girl anymore, right? Like I was trying to be bad, but inside I was feeling like I'm not good. I'm not good anymore. I don't deserve anything good. Look who I'm hanging out with. Look who I'm dating. Look what I'm doing. Everything was a secret, right? Everything was a secret. All of my, like vomiting and profusely, like all of the come downs off the drugs and the alcohol, the ODs. I didn't tell anybody. Only the people that might have been with me knew. I was so ashamed of what I was doing that it started like just, it was overwhelming. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, completely. And that's another thing, Candy, that I appreciate so much about your book is because you do illuminate and give life and light to how this happens. Because just like you said, I think so many people are like, oh, how did they get to that point? How did they get to such a dark, how could they become a drug addict and all of
Yeah.
this? Like, what a X, Y, or D, all these judgments that they make. But the thing is, it's not like somebody wakes up one day is like, I think I want to date a drug dealer and become a drug addict because that sounds like fun. You
Yeah.
beautifully show how it just kind of happens. And I want to share what my interpretation of how you said it and correct me if I'm wrong. But one thing was that you illustrate how you were getting in the party scene and you happened to meet a guy who happened to be a drug dealer. And what you noticed was that when you hung out with him, you got all your drugs for free and he paid for everything. And you're like, sweet. So who wouldn't be slowly seduced like, wow, this guy takes care of me. This guy has hookups. This guy always has things to do. He always has the parties. His place is the party and the drugs are free. So why
Mhm.
not? It's not like you actively seek it out, but you find like, oh, this is nice. It feels nice to be, have everything. And like you said, this thing that's scary about the drug or drinking world is that people don't want to be stuck in that alone. So when you walk into it with them, they're like, yeah, stay, do drugs with us
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they feel just how you described, Candy, where when you get lost in that world, when you go to the dark side, when you get that, I call it the disconnect from yourself. You start drifting further and further away from who you know you truly are, right?
Yeah.
We all know deep down that we're a beautiful being of possibility and light and love. But when you get into drugs, it is that kind of big, I fucking hate everything in myself, so I don't give a fuck. And then you slowly drift away. But that feeling becomes very creepy, is how I would define it. It's like when you get
Yeah.
sober, you're like, ugh, it's very unsettling. It's like
Yeah.
being caught in like the darkness, the dusk alone. You're like, so you want to get high again, you want to use to alleviate that pain. And then it becomes this cycle that, like you said, one day you're like, how did I get here?
Yeah, yeah. It's such a dirty, dirty, dark
Dirty. That's the,
underworld.
yeah, it's
It's
that,
so
ugh,
dirty. And
ugh.
some people are going to be like, oh, I'm fine. Like I can, there's the weekend cocaine guys. There's people who can go drink, that's fine. That's great. I'm glad that you can just do that and be done with it. Like, and you don't need to go to some dirty dungeon like I did. Like, okay. But then there's people like me that we end up there. We don't know how we get there. I don't know. I started dating one guy when he did have some drugs. That wasn't, the guy that I got arrested with. It was like, okay, now I learned, oh, okay, this is fun. Maybe I'll date another, and yeah, and then I did date dealers, after that because I was in that crowd. I was already dating, I was already doing drugs. It was like, why not date the dealer? I don't know. And have got no shame. I tell you about that in the book. It's like we know what we're there for. They're there to deal drugs. The girls are there to date the drug dealers. We get free drugs, they bring the drugs. They get the girls, right? Like that's just how it goes, right? But ending up in the dark, dirty world of like drugs, like people don't understand. Like we would go to some of the like craziest back alleys to like do drugs with people outside of the clubs, right? We're going to like all these 24-hour clubs in Atlanta. We're staying up, for days partying with just random people that we've met. And we're going to like places that are so unbelievably unsafe. The the fact that I am alive and that nothing bad happened to me is a total blessing because so many things happen to so many people. And some bad things did happen to me while I was on the drugs. But like especially today in today's society, like going to no way. I can't even imagine if my daughter ever went to where I went, like how worried I would be as a mother, you know? It's bad. It's really bad. And people don't really understand how bad it can get.
Yeah. Well, again, it's just sort of this ride that you get on and you just keep going. And, again, you don't, when you come to and you sober up, you realize like, oh, this got pretty weird. And then you want to go back under again. And
Yeah.
yeah, just some of the accounts that you shared. Like one thing I remember you when you were dating this guy, you said you guys would go to the strip club and he would just start burning money, like just to show that he had so much. And that was another part in your book where I was like, oh my gosh, like why would you do that? You could do so
Yeah.
much with that money, give it away, like help people. And it just shows you the state that they're in. I mean, can you imagine? People also wonder like how can you become a drug dealer? Well, you get power and you get all this money and you're like why would you burn it? Well, because he fucking can and he's on that place of like again another fuck you to the world, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I- you know, you know, when I first started stripping, like the money was crazy and it was like so easy. And it was so hard to walk away from that money. It was so hard because you're in this environment where you're making so much money, drugs are free, you have status, whatever, because like we're strippers, like back then, and like, yeah, a lot of the strippers are dating drug dealers. And it's like, I can see why that would be attractive for a drug dealer. It's like, oh, they don't start at the top. And it's like, hey, here's some pills, go sell them. And then they sell them and they have, a couple $1,000s left over. Oh, wow, that was easy. That's all I have to do is go to a club and sell these, and that's it. Like you don't just become like this. It's like this little invite. It's like a tiny invite, and it's like, hey, over here, come try this thing. And you're like, oh, okay. I'm already messed up, so I'm like, why not? It's not like I'm just walking out of church and they're like, hey, you want to go strip? I'm like, no, like I just got out of church. What do you think? Right? Like there's a disconnect that happens before you get into that world. And the disconnect is trauma and it's shame and it's pain. And we're doing it all masked. We're all acting like we're so cool and happy, and we are at the time because it's masking what we're really feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then again, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I believe you wrote about is that you were dating this guy, but then you broke up. And so then the money and the drug connections were gone, the drug to get those things, right? And then isn't it that why you started stripping? Because you're like, well, wait a minute, now I need to have some of my own money and resources. and you'd already been introduced to the strip clubs through that guy,
Yeah.
right? You said that you
Yeah.
guys would party at the strip club, so you got accustomed to like again, when you're in it, you're like, people are great there. They're friendly, there's so much money, it's an easy gig.
Yeah.
And so then you just found your way there because why wouldn't you? If you've been introduced to a source of great wealth and abundance, why wouldn't you be like, oh, cool, I'll just do
Yeah.
that to keep my lifestyle? Because you also probably get used to a certain lifestyle of having money and drugs all around you.
Yeah. So I was still going to college, trying to figure something out while I was dating him. And then after I got arrested by the feds, by the way, like that's not just like a normal arrest, right? I was like, oh, well, I don't really see much hope for my future now. Like th I realized I had done something really bad at that point. I was like, oh no, this isn't good. And so he was on the run. And so, yeah, I didn't have any money anymore. And I thought, well, I don't really see a lot of hope for my future. So I guess I'm just going to quit college and I guess I'll just become a stripper because why not? Like, I mean, at this point is when I started feeling like I've got nothing really any hope for my future anymore. I'm probably going to be, put in prison at this point is what I'm thinking, I'm waiting for like whatever's next to come. I'm going to have a felony on my record. I'm not going to be able to get a real job. So I might as well just quit college and become a stripper because at this point that's just all I'm going to be good at is what I was thinking. Yeah.
And can you share a bit, Candy, in your most honest way? Because I wonder about this often. When I was in high school, my friend became a stripper when she was a senior because she was 18 and it was a whole bad situation where she was also involved with an older man. He wasn't a drug addict, but he was a very manipulative person and convinced her that that was the route to go so she could move out from her parents anyways. And so I would go with her because I wanted to be supportive. And I was like, if this is what you want, then do it. Because to me, it's a conflicted thing, right? Is that I want to support and empower women, and women are beautiful and they're sexy and they're talented, and watching them dance is amazing. But then I went to the strip club and I was like, oh, yes, they're beautiful and dancing, but they also seem beholden to doing exactly what this person in front of them wants in order to get that money. And
Yeah.
I felt this sort of, it made me a little bit, for my friend, I was like, do you want to be doing this? And she was 18. She didn't know. But to ask you who's experienced, did you ever enjoy it? Did you ever feel free? Or did it feel that sense of you were giving away something of yourself to get what you needed?
Honestly, I got addicted to the money so fast.
How much money do
Absolutely.
you make as a stripper?
I mean, thousands a night at least, you know. I mean, it was like so easy and I just got so addicted to the money, and I was already addicted to drinking and drugs. So it was free in there. And I wasn't like I don't know that I would say I was addicted, but I was addicted. I mean, I always kind of shy away from that term. I had a serious substance abuse issue. Let's just say that with drinking and drugs, and it was in there. So did I like doing it? I like to dance. So I guess, in a way, it didn't bother me, the dancing. I'm very, very confident in my body. So I guess it didn't really bother me taking off my clothes. But did I like it? No. Did I really like it? No. Like I struggled with that a lot, and I talked about that in my book about the shame of, struggling with who I was, where I came from, what I was doing, and then my struggle of like, but I keep doing it because I need the money. I can't do anything else, and I would have to continue to get high. So it was like this cycle. It was like I just didn't think I had any other ways to support myself. And I know people are going to say, well, you can go and get a job as waitress and stuff. I'm telling you right now, when you get addicted to the money, it's like getting addicted to a drug. It's really hard to walk away from it. It's super hard. So that was the thing. I was always trying to figure a way out of the strip club, though. I did at one point like try to go get another job, and I was working that job, kind of thinking like everything had disappeared from my arrest because I didn't hear anything back. And so I was working at this other job for like a year and a half that was actually like a real job, right? As an MCSE, Microsoft software engineer person. And you know, I did that for like a little while until again, I got arrested, by the feds at 23. So I was arrested twice, right? But in between there, I was always trying to figure a way out of the club. And then after that arrest, that's when I got into the like super big trouble. Yeah, and I was actually in jail for like almost a month, and I was looking at prison time, right? My second time I got arrested, that I talk about in the book by the feds. They were closing in on his case. This is about 4 years later. And I had had this job that I was trying to be good at. And I got arrested because I had missed a court date. So now I guess I was a fugitive from the law. I didn't even know it. And they took me in. They busted in the door, like where my parents lived. I mean, they shackled me around my waist, my feet, my hands. They took me into jail. They were like, "You're going to prison for 20 years. We're closing in on the case. We just found your boyfriend hiding out in Spain." I was like, "What the fuck?" Okay. I don't know anything about this. Like literally, I was 19 when this happened, and I'm thinking, shit, I'm 23 now. I'm trying to get my life in order, right? Like, I can't believe I'm going to prison. And luckily, I didn't go to prison, but I did end up getting a conditional felony on my record. And then when they let me out, it was like, okay, now I definitely can't get another job because now I actually have it on my record, right? So I got fired from the other job that I was trying to, do good at, and then went back to the club because I was like, well, what am I going to do? Now I can't get a real job. I might as well, it's like, is it that I am a piece of crap? I am a horrible person. I am a bad person. I have messed up my life. I'm never going to get better. I deserve this. This is where all of that, shame and self-worth comes in. That was like, I just should go back to being a stripper. At least that's all I'm good at. It's like, so now I'm back in the club. So it was a constant, always trying to get out of the club for a long time. And I'd always get reeled back in, back in, back in. You know, again, like a drug dealer gets out of prison, what's he going to do? Probably go back to dealing drugs. Why? Because what? Because it's hard to turn your life around. Now, eventually, I did turn my life around, but not for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, I appreciate you so much telling your story because it helps people to see before you judge, you don't know. You never know what somebody is going through. And you also don't know what would you do in that situation, right?
Yeah.
People like to think, "Oh, how could you have done that?" But when you do feel like you do not have other options and right in front of you is a clear way to get the means that you need to continue your life, how would you not do it? And also, getting a full-time, well-paying job is very difficult. And also, very few of them are going to pay very well. And it's why people get into the game. They get into the game, and like we talked about, it's a dirty game. It's not worth it. But can't you see why people do it? It's like I could either work my ass off for basically nothing, or I could shoot up to the top and make way more money than you could ever imagine by going into the dark side. So,
Yeah.
I just don't think there's much room for judgment. And yeah, also when you're in that place where you were, where it's like, I have a felony, what else am I supposed to do? And also, you're beyond that, like in your outer world, your inner world, like you said, was in destitute, where you're like, all this shame. How do I see
Yeah.
this? And how did you sit with it? And because I know you eventually got into real estate because you're a successful, very successful real estate house flipper extraordinaire. Which part in the book talks about the bridge that took you from going back to the clubs to reclaiming a life where you could be healthy and flourish?
So after I got out of prison, I fell in love and I
Which one
ended
was
up
this? I'm trying to remember the
this
different guys.
this
Oh
was
no, oh
like
no, was this
this
him? Was this the
this
one?
was like yeah, this was like the my guy that I loved that I was with for about 4 years, and he became abusive.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
That's another thing. Again, I told you when you're reading your book, you're like, okay, good. She's going, she's cruising. And then you're like, oh no. Because he sounded great. You guys seemed like intense lovers, intense
Yeah.
connection. And then it was like, oh shit. Nope. It's one of
Yeah.
those.
Ugh. It was so, yeah, he was perfect. He was my best friend. We went to church. We waited to be intimate. And then he just turned into a monster. And I didn't see it coming. And I'd never been abused before. So it's very methodical. It's like you don't know again what's happening, especially as a young person, and I'm in love and I'm thinking, well, maybe he's just having a bad day, he's getting really mean and his yelling, right? He's getting really like I didn't think it's verbal abuse at the time. I just thought, man, he's saying some really mean things, right? But then he's like, oh, I'm sorry. I just had a really, bad day at work and all this stuff, right? Like how the abuse starts. And it turned into like serious verbal and mental abuse, and then eventually it turned physical. And after a threat to my life about 4 years later, and I finally left him. But when I left him, my home was in foreclosure. I was sitting there. I was like, I have nothing to show for myself. My home's in foreclosure. I've been a stripper on and off for 6 years. I'm a conditional felon. I'm a college dropout. I'm like, I have nothing to show for my life. I just left an abusive relationship. I'm completely broken. And that's when I was like considering taking my life because I felt so ashamed of who I had become. I had felt so bad about the person that I had become. I was thinking about my parents. I was thinking about God. I was thinking about myself. And I was just like, I just think maybe it might be easier if I'm just not here anymore, because I didn't want to bring shame to anybody else. And I didn't want to bring shame to me. And I didn't understand that there was any hope at that time. Like I felt so alone, I felt so alone because I hadn't been talking to anybody about any of this. I didn't talk to a lot of people about the abuse because that's what abusers do. They isolate you. Like my best friend walked away because she didn't want to hear me over and over and over telling her how I was being hurt. And I'm not blaming her for doing that. But she left. And I didn't have anybody. I didn't have a community. I didn't want to tell my mom because I didn't want my mom to be hurt that I was being abused. I never talked about the shame that I felt about the stripping. I always kept all that secret. Not all, the only time it came out was during the second arrest when my parents found out I was actually arrested. I just came clean and was like, I have to tell you something. I've been working as a stripper, over the last 6 years. I have a serious problem with drugs and alcohol, like all this stuff, but I never really talked about it. And so at that point I thought I'm going to take my life. And I didn't. I ended up like, going through this whole born again thing of like crying out to God and asking God to help me because I was like, well, I, I can't do it on my own anymore. I'd walked away from God so many years ago after being bullied, right? And so I just thought, well, last case scenario, I'm like, God, if you're there, will you please help me, right? And then that was, that was another turning point of, you know, waking up the next day and feeling like, okay, instead of listening to the voices in my head telling me just to give up, I'm gonna listen to this voice that I hadn't heard in a long time, telling me to get up, telling me to fight, telling me like this isn't where your life ends. No, you don't need to go back to the strip club. Like you need to figure out something else for your life. Don't go back to your abuser, right? Because in my mind, my heart and my mind are fighting, right? My heart's like saying, go back to him. He's gonna change, right? And my mind's like, he's not gonna change, right? And then my heart's like, well, just, and I don't know if I'm getting it wrong. Maybe it's my heart, maybe my mind was telling me to go back to him. I'm not sure. But I think like I kept thinking, well, I could just go back to the strip club. My home's in foreclosure. I could just go get the money. But then it was like something in me was like, don't go back to the strip club. Figure out another way to save your home from foreclosure. So I had these thoughts going on in my head. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to become a real estate investor. I had gone to this seminar, a few years back. And that's when I was like, I'm gonna go get this book out of my closet. Like I laid it out and I'm like, reading it from front to back of how to make this work. And I ended up just following the process. And then literally I put a home on a contract and then like 45 days later I had flipped it and sold it and made $7,000 and saved my home from foreclosure. And then I never went back to the strip club. So that was a big, big deal. Big deal. But I
Yeah.
had to make a conscious decision. Am I going to just go back to the club because I can, or am I going to work towards something else? And that was the only thing that allowed me to get free from the club was like my mind, my faith, my hard work, because that's what it is. It's so easy to go back to what's easy. But if you want to change your life, you've got to go for what's hard. you
And
know?
you did. You worked your ass off. That's another thing that comes through very strongly in your book is your incredible work ethic and determination. When you described flipping this first house and you went through a lot, there were hurdles. It wasn't easy. Because I was reading, I was like, oh, maybe I should do that. I want to flip house. But then I was like, oh, damn, that actually sounds like a lot of work. She did a lot. She had to, I mean, and it progresses throughout the book because your career in doing that grows. And you were a savvy woman. You found ways to make it work, but it did not sound easy.
It
Sounds like
wasn't
a lot of
easy.
work.
It wasn't easy, but I don't think anything is easy that like, nothing in life that's worthwhile comes easy.
Yeah. Yes, it's true, but it's the things that really get in there and create the passion to do it that's when you're aligned. Like, yeah, nothing's easy, but pick the thing that's you at least have the drive for, right? Like it seemed like something about flipping houses really lit you up. And I imagine after everything you've been through, it's because you got to exercise your abilities and see the results for it, and you got to work for yourself. I don't know if you did at the beginning, but eventually you were your own boss and you're like, this is me. This is who
Yeah.
I am.
Well, I knew that I couldn't get a real job because of my, felony. And so,
You had to. So you did what you had
my
to.
conditional felony, it did eventually go away, but like I had to do something. So it was either stay in the club or start a business. Or go work for somebody else as like a waitress or something, which I didn't want to do that, right? I didn't want to work for anybody else. I wanted to do something that I could be proud of, and I was always interested in real estate. So, yeah, I think like how did I do that? Well, I was really passionate about it because I really liked real estate. I liked taking something ugly and making it beautiful, like when I would flip the houses and renovate the houses and stuff. That's just a vision that I could see. So like anybody else, I would say, well, what is it that you really think you'd like to do? When you're trying to make that decision, right, of changing something serious about your life, you just have to figure out what do I think I want to do, and then you've got to go for it. And it's not going to be easy, you know? Like not to jump to another subject, but when I decided I was going to become a speaker, that is not this is not an easy circuit to break into, right? It's been a long road, but like I had this vision, this faith that this was my new calling. So I did that. I became very successful in real estate, but I hustled and I have a hustler mentality, you know? I've always had a hustler mentality. It's like I want to make money and we can all make money. You don't have to have a college degree. There's so many opportunities now, used to, kind of coming like when we were coming up, it's like, yeah, that's what people did. They like went to college and then, went and got a job somewhere. But you don't have to, and you have a degree. You probably, I'm not really sure what kind of degree you have. I'm assuming, did you go to college?
Masters, you get a master's in psych to then go ahead and
Okay.
get licensed as a therapist.
Yes, so you have an amazing degree, and that is worthwhile because you are helping people, and you have to have a degree in order to be considered, right? A master's with your psychology degree. But you don't necessarily have to have a degree for flipping houses, right?
Or
Or
to be a
building.
speaker and to share a lot of knowledge, wisdom, and guidance
Yes,
to others, right? And
exactly.
to your point, I'm such a proponent of if you don't need that piece of paper, don't do it. I know
Yeah.
so many people with MBAs that they never used, and that's a lot of money. I
Yeah.
mean, there's nothing wrong with gaining education, but I think people still have this mentality of that's the only way. But it is expanding for people to realize absolutely not. You don't need that to
Yeah.
utilize your own skills and find a way. And that's a beautiful gift of what's developed over time, of the resources we have, being virtual, all these things help and lend to that. You can create a business by yourself online.
Yeah, that's what I tell my daughter too. I'm like, listen, unless you're going to be a doctor or an attorney or a psychologist, like, I don't know that you really need to go to college other than maybe if you want to be social, unless you like to work for somebody else. And that's completely fine too, because there are benefits to working for somebody else. You don't have to take it home with you all the time. You get a paycheck every single week, right? Like
Yeah.
there are benefits. But for me, it was like I didn't have the opportunity because of my criminal record. And I was like, what can I do? And how can I get out of the strip club and make money? Because I knew I wasn't going to be happy unless I was making a lot of money. And I always call real estate money a strip club on steroids money. It's like I get to go out there and make a bunch of money and keep my clothes on and keep my self-worth now. So it's like great.
It's beautiful. But
But
then, Candy, in your book, we go into the next chapter, which
no
is like,
shame, no shame if any women are in the sex industry or stripping or anything like that. I am not judging like at all,
yeah.
but I am saying for me, that's where I want it to be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. And that's what I always say. And I just always, my biggest thing is if you're safe and you're happy, do whatever you want. My concern about the sex industry for women is that I think it's not always safe or a place that's very conducive to thriving or health. Not all the
No.
time. If there's women who own it and they work it, more power to you. But some of these places, like you said, a lot of them they get tied into certain people to make
Hmm.
the more money and they're not being treated well. And that's my concern. But I'm the same way. No shame to anybody. But if you don't
Yeah.
want to be there, let's offer and share with others that there is a way out. So I think that's again a beautiful thing about your story. You offer that, hey, you want to stay there, that's great. But if you felt like I did, where I wanted a different way of feeling stable and financed, there is other ways.
I will go one step further and I will say at some point we all went out. At some point we all went out of the sex industry. It doesn't matter if you're an escort or a dancer or you're whatever you're doing, like at some point you went out because at some point you're just like, I don't want to do this anymore. I didn't know, it didn't catch up with me for a while, right? And then it really messed me up afterwards. And it really, really like I hated that part. I still sometimes like when I'm on stage talking about the word stripper, like it just does something to me. It's just so hard to talk about that because it does mess with us, whether we know it or not. And it comes out after the fact. And there are many girls that have been in the sex industry that have committed suicide because they couldn't handle all of the probably shame that they felt, like me, like shame is just a killer. But yeah, at some point you want out. Might not be there right now, but at some point you do because you're just like, I don't want to do this life. I don't want to be owned, you know? Um, yeah. So,
Thank you for sharing those insights. It's really illuminating to talk to somebody who's been there. Because again, when you're on the outside, I just don't feel that I have a place to say anything. But I just
mhm.
have, like I said, I have my concerns. I just worry. I just wonder, are you okay? Are you safe? And because I mean, maybe you felt this way when you were in it, but a lot of people project it as being very glamorous to be in the sex industry and they own it. And I just don't know. I'm like, I want to believe that. But as a therapist, I'm like, but how is your heart? How's your emotions? Let's talk. I just want to make sure you're okay. But it sounds
Yeah.
like you're saying that to a certain degree, anybody who drifts into that world is going to feel a little bit beholden to things that are not good for them or things that are
Yeah.
affecting them negatively.
Yeah, and I think unless you just honestly not I don't know how to say this in the right way, but I think some girls can do it and not feel anything.
Mhm.
Those girls are definitely they have a different mindset than I do, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
It's kind of like how some people can treat people one way and not feel a certain way about it, and then other people are like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that." You know? I think I think that's to me those are the kind of girls that can do it and then maybe, not feel any type of way about it. But I would say the overwhelming majority of us always deal with the shame afterwards. I've had even like a lot of porn stars reach out to me talking about feeling the shame that they felt, and how did they get over it. And, it says like in the Bible, like, all the sins that are done, out of all the sins, there's only one sin that actually affects us the most, and that's sexual sin, because it's inside our bodies and our souls. When you sleep with somebody, and now I'm probably going off in a tangent, but when you sleep with somebody, you're connected to that person, like biblically, right? Like you give part of your soul away every single time you're with somebody. And so there's a part of exchange for your soul while you're doing all of that. When you're doing it for so many years, eventually it catches up to you. And I think that's why it's so hard. And that's why we struggle so much with the shame that comes from it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Candy, for speaking to that because it's a topic that I often want to speak upon, yet because I don't know it that well, I don't want to state anything that would be, I don't know it, So I don't want to speak to things that I don't know too well or make, and I don't judge, but I just have concern and my heart goes out to people who feel. And like we were just talking about, I know what it's like to shove down how you really feel in order to pursue what you think you need, right? Just
Yeah.
that a lot of people disconnect from their
Yeah.
bodies to say, well, I can find a way to like this. I'm okay. I'm okay.
Yeah.
But your body the whole time is being abandoned.
We do that all the time. We're
Yes.
surviving. It's like you can think about so many different ways. You're surviving when you're saying, I'm going to keep going into this job that I hate. You're just settling, right? You're surviving when you're just staying with a guy because he's continuing to be mean to you. And yeah, you love him, but really you think, I don't know if I can be by myself. I don't know if I can support myself. I don't know, if I deserve somebody better. Like I feel like we're just all kind of not, we're all surviving, choosing the things that aren't good for us. And we do it by masking and saying, "Oh, it's okay. Whatever, what else am I gonna do?" It's like it's almost like we're surviving so much, it's so hard to look at, ourselves and believe in ourselves, of like, can we get out of this, right? I don't know. Sometimes I go off like on a speaking tangent, but I feel so deeply about that. I feel like so many of us are just kind of walking around living in this life of just doing the same thing over and over and over, but it's in this sense of like we're just surviving, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing about that gets to me is that the truth is we're all free. And I think that what you're describing are people who feel beholden to, well, what else do I expect? What else could my life be besides a job that I hate and just trying to make ends meet and just going through the motions? But that's literally the antithesis to the purpose of life. Life is
Yeah.
created for joy. Our souls literally came here for our expression, our joy. And that's a big part of the work I do is I want to be a reminder. I want to bring that out, evoke that in people to remember this is your life. And if more of us stop settling for just getting through, we would all be kind of collectively collaborating around how can we be more fully expressed? Because who are we serving by just going along with the way things are? The way, sorry, I can go on a tangent on this, obviously, but my
Yeah.
whole thing is that the world is the way it is because we agreed at a certain point, well, just fall in line and let other people tell you what you have to do. Well, this all isn't going to change until enough people are like, fuck that. I want to feel not just good enough. I want to feel fully expressed and I want to feel I'm living my full potential and soul purpose. And you
Yeah.
and I, because we're both similar in this too, I also feel this new adventure in my career. My new revelation is to be a speaker and to use my voice. That's all I want to do, just like you. Because it's important to speak to these things because speaking sparks conversations and every change happens through discussion and conversations, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Catalyst.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's like it all goes back to like it goes back to our belief systems, and what we believe we deserve, what we believe we can achieve, and we get stuck in that space because of all of our past mistakes and
We get
all of
imprisoned
that.
by it, right? We get
Yeah.
imprisoned. We're self-imposed prisons are what most people live in. It's what I lived in, and I still do to some degree, and that's why I do my podcast to talk about, it. And that's why I'm constantly looking for how do I address my beliefs and my feelings to alleviate myself, to liberate myself from these beliefs that keep me small. Because who the fuck needs to be small? If you're not leading by ego, if you're leading by your heart, you should be as big as you want to be, right?
Yeah.
We need more big-hearted people in this world and it's like, be your damn self. If you're leading with your heart, be as big as the fucking sky. Like that's a beautiful thing. The problem is right now we see people who have big egos because they're in this self-imposed prison of I have to be good enough. I have to get the accolades. I have to be worshiped. I need all these things, these conditional things. That leads us nowhere. It leads us nowhere. But when more people say, you know what? This is who I am. This is the spark in my heart. This is my passion. I'm going to follow it.
Hmm.
We could all live these beautiful, freer lives, I believe, I think.
We could. It's definitely not as easy. It's difficult, but the reward is so worth it.
It is. But you still have to be a survivor because now we've been talking a long time, which is amazing. I knew we would have a big, robust conversation, and that's what I want. You reach this place where you've gotten over this huge mountain and you're cruising, you're doing great. And then you still hit these major, life still happens, right? Wouldn't you know? And I told you, I was reading your book. I was like, oh, thank God she's okay now. She's doing, look at her kicking ass. And I was like, what the fuck? What? Because they're okay, I don't know which happened first, but you met a guy, you got to have your beautiful daughter, but he just disappeared. Disappeared. That again made my jaw drop. That was a jaw dropping moment. Didn't help you with a penny. And he was very wealthy and he just left you with a new child and you were back. You had to go back to your parents. I was like, no, you made it so far. And
Yeah.
I'm not, that's not like, you know, insulting you. It's just I was so shocked. And for you, for your, I was like, I wanted this to happen. And then your house, we're kind of fast forwarding through these parts, but then that was another big thing that happened to you once you'd really gotten on the track of being true to yourself and healing. Your house burned down that you spent a lot of time and money building.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
no, poor thing.
Yeah, I think I think honestly, like my path in life is just to show people that you can be resilient, no matter what happens to you.
Amen. You are definitely a testament to that.
It's not easy. It's not easy, but the only other option we have is to settle and accept whatever life hands us. And that is not going to make us happy. It didn't make me happy. I wanted to have an amazing life. I wanted to make a great life for my daughter and I, being a unexpected full-time single parent, was just like, what? Like nearly homeless, like, my parents are taking us in. We've got no car, we've got nothing, and I'm thinking, at first I was angry, yeah, and then I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna live this life. Like I'm not gonna live a life of barely above poverty, as the statistics say for single moms. I'm not doing it. And I was just like, I'm gonna fight. I'm gonna make a good life for my kid and I. Like, if it's the last thing I do, I'm going to fight and I'm gonna get this, I'm gonna get my career started again because I wasn't flipping houses at the time because, I was letting him take care of us. I was engaged, by the way, called the wedding off and looks like I made the right choice, right? Because he walked away. So, it was just the whole book is about just like never giving up. Like every single time I got knocked down, I got back up. But I made the choice to go the route that was going to be the hardest, but the most rewarding. And I also made the choice to not let, like, I was so resentful and angry towards him for walking away from his child, but for not helping me raise our child. I mean, he took our only car, even though he had three. I mean, dude was not a good guy. And I mean, I rebounded with him after I left my abusive ex. And I was with him, I wasn't in love with him, I guess, because, I was still trying to get over my abusive ex. But I got pregnant like on accident. I didn't plan. Like I was engaged to this guy and I called the wedding off, but I didn't mean to get pregnant. It wasn't like I was like trying to get pregnant by him. I know there's a lot of women that do that, but I wasn't trying to do that. And so it was like people like get mad at me sometimes. They're like, well, you didn't love him. You were with him because, and I'm like, oh, okay. Like how many of us have actually like gotten hurt from one guy and we've gone and dated somebody else just trying to get over him, we've all done that. And I did that. And then I happened to get pregnant and I love my daughter. And it's like, I'm so thankful that I got pregnant and I'm so thankful that I had that whole experience of becoming a full-time single mom because now I can talk to other full-time single moms or single moms, that are doing it mostly on their own and I can relate to them. I can have compassion for them. I think the main thing about my story is that I am thankful that I went through what I went through because if I didn't go through it, I wouldn't be the person that I am today and I wouldn't have compassion for people. I wouldn't understand them the way that I understand, right? And so it's like, yeah, it sucked. A lot of it sucked, but it made me stronger. And in the end, I was able to overcome and I was able to find my freedom. And now I am able to be a voice for others who are looking to do the same thing for their life. So lots of ups and downs.
And now you're just getting started on this new journey, which is about using your own beautiful, I call it a badge of honor. Everything we've taken coal into a diamond, right? It's like, hey, guess what? I came out of the fire, literally came out. I didn't die. I got stronger. The phoenix, right? The phoenix rise, and we burn to the ashes and then we rise up again. And that's what you did over and over. You are a hardcore badass woman. It's an honor to know you. I adore your story, Candy. Thank you for sharing it so raw, so openly. It's going to help so many people. And like I said, you're just getting started now on this new venture of all you need is you, yourself, and your voice. You can tour the whole world if you want and go tell it and help people who haven't
Yeah,
heard your story because they haven't heard it the way you tell it, which is real and honest. And there's going to be so many women who are like, oh shit, she said it. Maybe I can say it. Maybe I can admit, because it's, get this, some woman has been hiding a secret for her whole life that in your book you speak of. And she's going to say, oh, I
yeah,
can do that. I can admit that.
yeah,
That
yeah,
is priceless.
yeah. And not only can you, but when you do, you're going to find freedom from your past. And it doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen over time, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely.
It's so beautiful, Candy. This was such a fun conversation. I've been looking forward to this for a while because I got your book a few months back and I read through it pretty quick because it's such a good read. Everybody needs to read this. Naked
Yes.
by Candi Rose. It's so fun. Where can people find it,
So I'm
Candy?
going to send you all of the links that
Oh,
you can
perfect.
share with your community. My TEDx link. So by the time you
I cannot wait to
post
watch it.
this, yeah. And then I have a community that I'm building that they can come and be part of for free too, where I talk a lot about, freedom from your past and showing them, the steps of how to get there as well. But also I will give you the book link too. So I'll send all of that to you.
Fantastic. Well, Candy, I feel like we could talk for hours, but I'll just have to have you back and we should do like a focused episode. We could do a whole episode about bullying. We could do a whole episode about resurrection and reclaiming ourselves. So we just
Yes.
scratched the surface, but I had such a good time. I've been waiting to have this conversation for a while because, again, so much good stuff in your book. Beautiful. So proud of you. So grateful to you for writing it.
Thank you for having me on, and thank you for all your amazing questions.
Yeah. Super fun, Candy. All right, my dear. Well, I will see you soon.
All right.
Thank you again. Take care.